What a joy it is to be with you. I am fresh, not the turnip truck, but fresh off the airplane. Last night at 8:30, coming back from Unity Village, I was there taking some folks from our congregation. Nancy Spencer, our Board of Trustees representative, went with me, and a couple other ladies, and my daughter Joy. We had a wonderful time. Nancy's going to share a little bit about that in a couple minutes. It was just a pilgrimage home. We just sang, we're always at home in the land of I am, in that place within us that knows that we know that we know there's only one presence and one power. Amen? Amen. There's only one presence and one power even when we're not sure. Amen? Amen. Because spiritual principle doesn't change, right? Our circumstances change, our relationships change, our health changes. Spiritual principle does not change. There's one presence and one power in the universe, and it is active in our life. And here's the deal. It's active in all of our lives. We just forget. Or we're so caught up in the mask and the gunk and the clay and the circumstances that we can't see. But here's what I believe about spiritual principle. When there is an awareness that there is only one presence and one power, there is a crack in the layer of gunk or mud or the mask that is prohibiting us from remembering that. You know what I'm saying? There's a crack. There's a sliver. And so often life will come up and allow that crack to be a little bit bigger. Yes? Because you see, circumstances can feel very painful, and yet it's what's behind that crack. It's that light that's behind that crack. But anyway, so that has nothing to do with what I was going to talk about today. I want to quote for us this morning from the Gospel of Thomas. Raise your hand if you've heard of the Gospel of Thomas. Then you'll know that it's part of the Nag Hammadi Library. It's not part of the canonized Bible, so you won't see me open that up today, because it is a scroll that was found the 1940s that we believe is a contemporary to the books of the Bible. And so we know in Unity that we think about and we listen for the nuggets of wisdom. Well, here's what the third verse of the Gospel of Thomas said. Jesus said, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See the kingdom in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside you. When you come to know yourself, then you will become known, and you will realize that it is you who are the sons of the living Father." That's why we come to know ourselves. That's why we remember. That's why we know that we can return to that place of home in whatever beautiful design that might have. A home where we've created the kingdom of heaven as our sacred space that we live every day, or the home like our spiritual community here that we've created as sacred space. And yet, I think that part of this nugget of wisdom is that home is always within us. Last week we talked about the silence. We went deep and talked about the silence and what that was and had an experience of the silence. The silence is home. It's when we know there is no separation between who we are as divine essences and the one presence and the one power. So in Unity, we look to practices. And next week, we'll launch with our book study The Endless Practice by Mark Nepo. We will launch that experience of the practices, and this morning I wanted to talk briefly about our practice of denials and affirmations. I went to a prayer service this week while I was at Unity Village, and we had this wonderful Charles Fillmore quote. And it's from a book that, it's been many years since I've read Jesus Christ Heals, but as I read this quote, I was reminded, because in Unity we often talk about denials and affirmation, denying the power of something in our life and affirming it, that there's something else. Well, I love the way that Charles writes this. He says, withdraw the error and then build in the good. Some people leave out this second step, and when you get into the understanding of the mind, it is always good to use both the denial and the affirmation. So in our practice, we use our mind to think about it, to analyze it, to look at it. I've been accused as being someone who sees the glass as not half full. Now that's not really true, because when you think about using the mind to analyze, to summarize, to synthesize, the mind is simply collecting data about a situation. And it's through our own filters, or the filter of our mother, or the filter of our father, or the filter of our spouse, or the filter of our friend who was very happy to join us in our kvetching, right? Okay, so I know somebody besides just Nancy and I have had that experience. Thank you, at least you're now smiling and nodding. It's when we remember that we withdraw our emphasis on those perspectives. We deny the power of that perspective in our mind to control our experience. Now, that doesn't mean that the body's not going to do what the body does. And that doesn't mean that the relationship's not going to take the order that the relationship takes. It does mean that we get to remember we have a choice. Can I get an amen? We have a choice. And part of that choice is that when we deny the power of that experience, we fill in the good. This morning in our meditation, I introduced to you an affirmation that I invite you to add to your practice. I trust that God is happening. And when I'm a little bit impatient, I say, I trust God is happening now. Don't we want it now? Yeah. That's just our humanness. And that doesn't have to be bad. We just get to recognize it as our humanness. Breathe it in and return in a moment to I trust. I trust. So at this prayer service, we took this quote and we got into small groups of 3 or 4 and we just talked about it. Well, what do you think Charles meant? Or what does it mean to you? We were using the mind, talking about it. Sometimes in Unity, we've been known as the thinking person's religion because we like to analyze. We metaphysically interpret. We look beyond the literal. Well, in this prayer service called Sacred Circle, we then took that concept of analyzing and we quieted the mind and we took it into the heart. And it was beautiful. Sacred Circle is a weekly prayer service that happens on Thursdays. It's actually been called the Alternative Prayer Service at Unity Village, where for many, many, many years, over 100 years, folks have gathered at the noon hour, and they've had a prayer service. Very much like this, we sit in chairs, someone leads. Well, Sacred Circle is more about participation. And so that thinking and talking And then we take it into our heart. Well, this morning I want us to do the very same thing. I want us to take it into our heart. I want us to withdraw any error, fear, concern, or worries and put in I trust and take it into our heart. And so this morning it's a very specific situation I want us to do together as a spiritual community. And so this comes not only from myself, it comes from our board of trustees. We are getting to have the opportunity to celebrate 30 years. 30 years as a spiritual community. Amen? Amen? How many of you were here 30 years ago? Raise those hands high. It's not been just a bed of roses, is that correct? Because life is an adventure. So it's been 30 years of the adventure. So this morning I ask you to put on your thinking caps, and yes, this is participation. Tell me right now, what does celebrating 30 years look like, feel like, be for you? Anybody? Gratitude. Popcorn, come on. Joyful.
Love. Music.
Celebration. Laughter. Hope. A journey. Celebrating the journey. Who else? Who else? Growth. Challenges. Glorious. Bonding. So we have lots of words to describe what celebrating 30 years would be. And now I'm going to ask us to take a moment and close our eyes, and we're going to take it into our heart. And so without speaking, what would 30 years of celebration look like, feel like, sense? What events might it be? Just taking it into the heart. Celebrating 30 years. "30 years. And for the insights, we are grateful. Anybody get the word prosperous? 30 years is prosperous. All right, everybody come back. You want to stay there in the silence. I know, me too. On the cover of your bulletin, you should have a Post-it note. And I've taken the liberty on the PowerPoint behind me of creating 4 little categories. Just a minute, not yet. I'm going to ask you to choose one of these 4 categories. Again, the Board of Trustees wants to know how you'd like to celebrate 30 years. We've come up with a plan. We've come up with some ideas. If you need a pen or a pencil, we've got some in the back, and the ushers will bring them forward. Basically, what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to look at 4 ideas, and the 4th one is the other category, because I know unity, folks. We don't want to be put in a box. Jim, you'll bring that up for us. We've got some options here. And again, these are ones that I've heard. And part of it is I'm withdrawing the error of thinking it's too expensive, people won't come, it's too much time. I withdraw the error, and we put in the good. We commit today to put in the good, and what you're going to do is I'm going to ask you to choose 1, 2, 3, or 4, and if you choose 4, you need to write down what it would look like. And the ushers will have a trifold board that I'm going to ask you to stick your Post-it on your way out the door. So the very first one is in alignment with what your green flyer says. Saturday Night Live concert and dinner, $40 for adults, $25 for children under 16. I want to remind those of you who weren't here with us at the 25th anniversary, tickets were at least $45. I've heard all the way to $75. I don't know what the tickets were because I wasn't here. And that was for a buffet dinner with a DJ at a country club. And here we are 5 years later. We're even offering live music and less cost. Number 2, Saturday Night Live concert and dessert. So no meal. Tickets would be $20 for adults, $12 for children. Third option is a Saturday night concert. No food. It's a love offering. And the love offering would cover our musician expenses. And number 4, what other idea? What other laughter, dancing, celebratory experience might we have? Held here at the church. Thanks, great question. It'll be October 25th and 26th. And so, I ask you to take these into your heart. Take a moment. What will feel prosperous? What will feel joyful? What will feel like growth and connection? 1, 2, 3, and if you choose 4, share your idea. I'm asking you to go ahead and take a moment and do that now. Taking it into your heart. This community is committed to transparency. We want to hear your thoughts. And here's the thing I want to be sure you hear. Everybody's idea cannot be implemented. Do we understand that? Everybody's idea cannot be implemented. So we put on our piece of paper what our heart's desire is and we let it go. Amen?